What is your full name?
David Lupien Parish.
Where are you from?
I was I grew up in Auburn Hills, but I live in Berkeley.
Okay, and how old were you in 2009?
2009, I was 25.
Okay. And what do you recall about your financial life before the Great Recession, before 2007?
Well, I was fairly young. I didn't have a lot of money, but jobs were plentiful, and it was not too hard to find a job if you had the required skills.
Okay, what about buying or finding a home?
I didn't own a home back then. I was still pretty young. I wasn't very far in my career, so I wasn't really looking into buying a home, but they were expensive.
Were you overly worried about the health of the economy? Why or why not?
No, I grew up mainly in the 90s, and during the 90s, the U.S. had a lot of economic growth. The jobs were plentiful, a lot of people had money, the middle class was fairly strong. So I was never really worried growing up about the U.S. economy as a whole.
Okay. And how did you discover that our nation was facing a severe economic situation?
Well, I found out from reading and watching the news, seeing about people being laid off, people losing their homes, and large financial institutions pretty much crashing, going bankrupt.
Okay. And what were your feelings and emotions after learning about the severe situation?
I guess I was a little upset that the government allowed this to happen. It was all, I mean, when you look back at it, it was all preventable, but nobody wanted to take the steps. Nobody wanted to take a look at the problems that were in the housing market and the financial institutions not being regulated. And because nobody really wanted to do anything about it, we had a lot of problems in our economy as a result.
Okay. And did you make any cutbacks or anything during the time period of the Great Recession?
Well, during that period, after the housing bubble burst, our our mortgage was more than our house was worth. We were underwater, as it's called, and so we didn't spend lavishly. We tried to pay off debt like a lot of people did. So we weren't, spending and putting money into the economy.
Okay. And what did you think of President George W. Bush and the Congress's reaction to the Great Recession?
I think it was too little, too late with everything. It was all kind of knee-jerk reactions to things as they cropped up, instead of looking at the fundamental issues with the economy. They were just looking at some of the effects from what happened when all of the institutions started going bankrupt.
Okay. And when President Barack Obama took office in 2008, what did you think of his reaction and what his actions were to the problem?
I think that Obama had some good ideas about it. Um, he he wanted to start regulating the industry more, where the Republicans at the time were trying to deregulate, and we can see what happens when certain industries aren't regulated. Um, Industries that are based mainly on profit. When nobody's actually looking at what they're doing, then they just kind of run rampant, and then we have all these problems come up. So I thought what he was trying to do was positive.
Okay. How did you feel about the financial bailout given to the banking industry and the automotive industry?
I understood why they did it, but I didn't agree with it. I don't think that you reward failures, and that's pretty much what happened. They set up these systems and they kind of pushed us to the recession, and then as soon as they started hurting, we started throwing money at them to because we felt bad for the workers and how it affected people. But if companies aren't going to perform, then other companies need to take their place. And I don't think that it's the government's job to prop up certain private companies and make it so that they can't fail.
Yeah. How did you feel about the unemployment benefits and expansion of food assistance and other things during the Great Depression or during the Great Recession?
I think it was necessary. There were a lot of people who were hurting at the time. I definitely don't want something that would be a short-term fix to be more long-term. A lot of times when we create bailouts for people, individuals, they tend to last longer than they're actually necessary. But at the time, I think it was really needed. There were a lot of people who were losing their homes and didn't have money for food for their kids. And so I thought it was good at the time.
Okay. And looking back on the Great Recession, did you think that the recessions or depressions could have been prevented?
Yeah, I think that if anybody actually took a hard look at some of these institutions, they could have seen where this was headed. The fact that there was so much money being poured into the housing market when it obviously could not sustain itself, and doing the credit default swap on the mortgages with no regulation whatsoever. It was bound to happen. And the fact that all these people were getting rich off of it, they didn't care about it. But, that's what the government's there to do. They're there to care about saving, the people, not just the corporations. So I think that if we start looking at some of these things that are going out of control ahead of time, we might be able to take some steps to prevent it in the future.
Okay, and speaking of the future, what do you feel is our nation's greatest economic concern right now?
I think the biggest concern right now is that we're going back toward what took us to the Great Recession in the first place. Our government is trying to deregulate the financial institutions. The credit swap is coming back. It's coming back under a different name, but it's the same thing. Housing prices are rising back to where they were pre-recession, and it's just going to happen all over again unless somebody does something.
Okay. And what would you want students to know about the economic crisis?
I would want students to know that these types of things are preventable if we choose to look at it. And the students that are coming up now through high school and college are going to be the ones who are going to be affected more by the next one, because they're going to be the ones trying to get a house and get a good job. And when this happens again, they're the ones who are going to bear the brunt of it. So they need to try to learn and understand what the causes of these things are, so that when they're making decisions on their own financial future, that they try to take these things into account and stop accumulating debt, start paying off things, save your money, be smart fiscally.
Okay, and that should wrap it up. Thank you for speaking with me today.
Thanks.